I'm here with John Mroz, President and CEO of the East-West Institute. John, tell us a little bit about what you're doing here and about the East-West Institute.
Well, we're here to talk to the Secretary General about an ITU cooperative agreement with the East-West Institute, and our piece of this is international cooperation. How do we drive serious international cooperation between the private and public sectors and across national borders? And it's a task.
Cybersecurity is very much on the agenda. Tell us a little bit about your take on this.
Well, when we started this a couple of years ago, we decided to, there's no rules of the road. If you look at the maritime place, it's air, it's space, there's basic rules of the road. In this space, there's no rules of the road. There's almost no trust except within limited communities, and that doesn't extend across the other communities. So law enforcement doesn't trust industry, industry doesn't trust, the research academics, et cetera. So we have all these problems of how do we begin to get agreement on international cooperation, on how we actually deal with this. And so what we did is we set up what was called the Cyber 40 a few years ago, and this was taking the G20 plus 20 other critical nations in cyber. And we said, look, let's see if we can begin to come up with some basic agreements on rules of the road. And so a lot of that happens at the bilateral level, getting Russians and Americans or Chinese working on very specific problems. How do you fight spam? How do you, so kind of low-hanging fruit. How do we do things together as a way to build confidence, all the way up to larger international teams working on some of these larger aspects of rules of the road.
And how important to you is the dialogue that happens here at the WSIS Forum?
Oh, it's extremely important because these are critical. You have critical countries here, a lot of players here. This is such a vast field that so many people, we all know kind of a piece of it. It's like we all can hug a tree, but to know the whole field and to see the whole thing and begin to put it together is something very unusual.
What would you like to see come from this?
Well, I mean, what we need is we need a lot of small victories where people can actually see the results of what's happening. So one of the questions that I like asking people is, in the past 2 years, what are the things that have gone right? And let's look at those. Let's learn from those. What are the next things we could do to score some more small hits, which will begin to build trust and bring people together? And also this idea of engaging everyone. And there's kind of a tendency here to say, well, that country or that country is a problem. Well, all of us have problems and all of us have solutions, but the idea of treating everybody, bringing them together, our belief is that we can see international cooperation move ahead much faster than it has.
So is there a kind of axis of evil in terms of cybersecurity?
Some people say there is in different areas. I mean, we've got, on one hand, you've got cyber criminality, right, which is now not just somebody trying to get my credit card, right, but it's much more sophisticated, advanced, and dangerous for that. But also you have non-state actors which actually threaten states or could pit states against each other. This is kind of, it sounds like science fiction, but it's today. Absolutely, they have the capacity with these big, vast botnets and all. And here we're talking about the fact that we're all kind of in one boat together on cyber. The entire digital global economy hinges on the fact that an undersea digital cable system works. Whose responsibility is it? Are there single points of failure? There are. What are we doing to build resilience about those single points of failure? You're talking about the whole global economy. The ability of everyone who uses a smartphone, right, or uses a computer, all of that, and yet somehow this all works.
Do you see the future as being rosy, or do you see it as a dark future?
We've worked out kind of a diagnostic which shows, if you look at a graph, it shows a huge line of technology. Technology is just going crazy, and it's going to continue to go crazy. The importance in the economic terms, the importance of the digital economy is growing at huge terms. Just below it is the ability of cyber criminals to exploit this. And then way down below is law enforcement, which has one hand tied behind its back, privacy versus security, all these kinds of things. And then at the very bottom, you've got the policy community, which is hugely hampered. And so you have a growing delta between these five, which is absolutely, and that's what we're focusing on. This is not a luxury for the international community. We've just got to do it. So the problems are growing, the opportunities are growing, the problems are growing. We've got a job to do.
John Mroz, thank you very much indeed.